Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Jason. This is Comic Crypto Stock, and we're hoping for a seamless, no technical difficulties show tonight. All right, so I'm actually going to show the Wolverine book that I unboxed last night, just in case people were just too annoyed by all the technical difficulties to deal with that video. So here it is. This is the J. Scott Campbell artist proof, and this one is limited to 300 copies, and all of them are signed. And it's a glow-in-the-dark cover. It looks really cool. It's probably one of the most tasteful glow-in-the-dark covers that I've ever seen. The claws glow a little bit, and then there's just a slight outline to Wolverine that glows. It looks really, really great in the dark. I mean, not that you're going to read comics in the dark. I mean, we always thought that was kind of weird, glow-in-the-dark comics, but anyway, it's a pretty cool cover, nonetheless. Do we got sound, guys? Mikey, we got sound? Okay, cool. All right, so, all right, start over. Hopefully that's the end of the technical difficulties. Okay, so this is the J. Scott Campbell glow-in-the-dark artist proof, 1 of 300. They're all signed. They've got a certificate on the back, and I lit this up last night, and very tasteful the way they did this glow-in-the-dark. The claws glow, and there's an outline of Wolverine. A little bit of his hair glows. Very, very tasteful. It's come a long way since that Ghost Rider 15 or whatever the first glow-in-the-dark comic book cover. So this we're unboxing is an independent comic book company. The three that I like the best right now are Source Point, Red 5, and Scout. All three of those companies are putting out really, really solid stuff, and it's getting kind of optioned right and left. So this is one of those companies. Maybe you guys can take a guess as to which one it is. And about half of this order has been pre-sold, so that's why I couldn't wait to open it on Sunday, because I didn't want people to have to wait for their books to show up. And I'm prepared with bag and board in case they're not bagged and boarded. So that's kind of an issue I've been dealing with these independent companies, is that they just don't bag and board their stuff. Okay, so these ones are not bagged and boarded, but they do have them in like a distributor 10-pack. All right, any guesses as to which company it is? Yes, no, no. All right, so this is Source Point. And what we've got is 30 copies of Ogre #1. So that's a pretty hot book. And like I said, I've pre-sold about half of this order so far on eBay. There's a few more here. You know, I even sent him a message. I was like, please bag and board them. I don't care if I have to pay a little bit extra to get it. Um, they look like they're in pretty decent shape, but man, it's just, I don't know. I guess some of these smaller comic book companies don't realize that people are actually collecting their books too and not just reading them. So anyway, if anyone from any of the independent comic book companies watches this, please, at least offer as an option to get the stuff bagged and boarded, because there could definitely be some horror stories. So I'll definitely, let's just open one of these up and take a look at the art, because I'm real curious to see what it's going to look like inside. I'll definitely read one of these at some point and then do like a review. Maybe I'll do like a review of, a few of the independent books together. Okay, so paper is pretty nice. It's got a real nice feel to it, actually. It's kind of that matte finish, kind of similar to like an iPhone box. So that's a pretty nice feel to it. This one's got a little ding on the bottom. All right, so let's take a look at the art. So I don't know what this looks like for you guys. Even the interior pages are all pretty nice quality as well. So this art isn't as refined as what some of the other stuff I've seen, but I think the main thing is the story. What I've heard is that people are saying that this is a pretty decent story, and this is a limited series. I think it's 3 issues they're going to come out with. But anyway, this is Ogre number 1, in case anyone was curious. I will go through these, grade them, get stuff boxed up for people, and that way they don't have to wait for their books anymore. So anyway, a lot of people have been talking about CGC taking over. There's been people that have said, hey, breaking news, CGC is trying to put PGX and CBCS out of business with their new crossover services. So I kind of touched on that last night. I want to touch on it again tonight, just because that video had so many technical difficulties in it that, if I feel like, we cover everything again tonight, I might just delete that one. So anyway, my personal opinion is that CGC basically is a monopoly right now, like it or not. They've got 90% of the market share, possibly even more, and they do not care what any of the other companies are doing. They're doing their own thing, and they do not care. They're not, doing a bad service right now. Their turnaround times have gotten slightly better. They haven't started raising their prices like crazy, like what monopolies could potentially do. But that leaves, the other companies kind of learn. They've got to step up their game, if they're going to try and take some market share away from CGC. Now myself, I sell a lot of books, and I sell a lot of graded books, and so I am forced to use CGC because I don't want to put myself at a disadvantage as to other sellers. CBCS is going to take longer to sell the books, and they're going to go for probably 10% less than a CGC book in the same grade. And PGX is a completely different animal. People look at a PGX book, and they want to look at that book and figure out what CGC would grade it if it was cracked and sent to CGC. And then they want to base the value upon that, So a lot of times people like to say, hey, figure it's going to go down a grade and a half, or possibly even more. So a 7.5 PGX Silver Age book could be a 5.5 CGC book. So then people want to look at the values of that CGC book and that grade, and then they'll kind of base, the value of that PGX book, what they want to pay for it anyway, from that. So people like to say, oh, PGX sells for X amount of percentage less. Well, that percentage is going to change basically the higher the grade of the book, because if it's a lower grade book, even an old Silver Age book, if it's a Amazing Spider-Man #1 2.5 PGX, well, maybe CGC would grade it a 2.0 or 1.8. So that's not a huge difference in value when you're talking about that lower grade. Now, people might also take into consideration that, hey, did PGX possibly miss a trimming or some color touch or something like that would really drastically affect the price of the book? So people are going to, take that into account, and then they'll figure out what the market wants to bear for that PGX book. I also gave an example of like an Amazing 300 and a 9.8. So CGC is going to bring about probably 2,200 for that book, 2,300, somewhere around there. And PGX, someone's going to look at that PGX 9.8 and go, what would CGC grade this? Are they going to call it a 9.4 or a 9.6? Because the chances of CGC calling a 9.8 are probably slim to none. So now you start looking at the values of a 9.4 CGC Amazing 300s, probably about 550. So if someone says, okay, I'll pay 550 for that PGX 9.8, that is a huge, that is 70% less than what a CGC book in the same numeric grade would go for. People like to say, one grading company is right or wrong. They're all right because they're grading all to their own standards. So this is the big thing that people have to realize. And CBCS does put their standards out there for you to read, but they're very, very vague. CGC won't disclose their grading standards, and I don't know if PGX does or not. But the long and the short is, CBCS is pretty close on their modern books. High grade, a 9.8 is probably going to be a 9.8 at CGC most of the time. It's possible you could have a CBCS 9.6 and maybe CGC would call it a 9.8 and vice versa. So they're all really, really close. PGX is a little bit different. Their standards are such that, most of their probably 9.8s are going to be 9.6s or 9.4s if you sent them to the other two grading companies. So that's something that I think PGX needs to definitely look at. They're getting ready to change their cases, and they're looking for input from the community. So I don't own any PGX books, so I can't really talk about their cases, just what other people have mentioned. And what they did mention is on the side of the cases, right in the middle here, it looks like from where they're breaking them apart, there's some, imperfections there. And people don't really like that, so I would definitely think that if we're going to give them advice, hey, figure out a way to make that disappear so the case is clean all the way around and there's no imperfections or anything like that. Other thing I would say is they need to make their cases to where they don't open easily. The new CGC cases, if you go to open those, they crack all down the side, and there's no way that you're going to be able to open that case and manipulate that book inside and then close it back up and have it look good. That's just not going to happen. So I would recommend to PGX, definitely, bump up the security and the rigidity of those cases, I guess, without trying to get the cost up so much to where you have to raise your prices. I do love the fact that they're putting the grader notes on the back of the slabs. Fantastic. Everyone's been wanting that for so long. Charging $5 to do it, not a real big fan of that, because now you're kind of putting your pricing right up there with CGC, so I think put the grader's notes on the back of the slabs and do it for free. Just do it, be the first company to do that. That would be fantastic. So the other thing that I think I would recommend for PGX, you're getting ready to change your slabs. What you need to do now is try and mirror CGC's grading standards to the absolute best of your ability. Tighten your grading standards up. Try and mimic what CGC is doing. Maybe put a statement out that, hey, you've got a new case, you got a new label, you're going to put grader notes on the back, and now, we have introduced our new, improved, toughest grading standard in the industry, or something like that. they're not going to want to say, hey, we're going to try and match CGC with our grading. That doesn't sound good, but tighten up that grading, and then there will be tons of other YouTubers that will test it. They're grading tight now, and they'll send 3 or 4 or 5 books into all 3 grading companies, and do all that type of stuff again, and get to where you're kind of on par with CGC's grading, and then possibly at that point you can start taking in going after some of their market share. Because right now for me, I'm forced to send it to CGC because I'm going to be at a huge disadvantage if I go to sell books that are not CGC graded. It's just going to be difficult to sell, and PGX is going to be very difficult to sell. So we also talked about some other ideas. I mentioned that, hey, if I was a millionaire and I was going to start my own grading company, man, I would do subgrades. I would have a grade for centering and wrap on a book, as a subgrade. Because you'll see all the time also, CGC does not care about wrap or centering when they grade books. I've seen even a 10.0 New Mutants 98. Look that one up on the internet. The wrap isn't perfect. And I'm like, how can they give this a 10.0 when the wrap and the centering on this book isn't perfect? I've seen 9.8s with, a 1/4 inch of a miswrap. And it's like, really? That's a 9.8? Well, okay, not the 9.8 I'm going to spend big bucks on. Maybe someone else will, not me. So those are some other things that I'm sure collectors would love to have some subgrades on there. Beckett recently bought CBCS, and Beckett was the first card grading company to offer those subgrades. If you look at what a Beckett 9.5 goes for versus like a PSA 10, the Beckett 9.5 goes for multiples of a PSA 10. And a Beckett 10 goes for just insane amounts of money. And then even when you get to a Beckett 10 card, you got to look at all 4 of the subgrades. And if you have 10, 10, 10, 10, then that's even crazier. People will just go bananas for that, because you could potentially have 10, 10, 9, 5, 9, 5, and they'll round that up to a 10. So that would be like the lowest grade that you could get on your subgrades and still have a 10. So I would love to see a grading company do that. I would love to see some artificial intelligence. We talked about that. What I would do if it was me, every time we grade a book, if it's New Mutants 98, okay, we take a picture of it, front and back at least. And we store that. So here's all the pictures of the New Mutants 98s, 9.8s. We'll store those over here. Here's all the 9.6s. Here's all the 9.4s, and so on. And then once you have like an inventory of that, then you'll be able to take a book and scan it and have some artificial intelligence go through there and try and match it up. And they'll say, hey, this is a 75% match to a 9.8, and then a 25% match to a 9.6. Give that to a grader, give them that report. They look at it, make the final determination. But at least you'd really be able to eliminate a lot of the human error aspect of it. You can look at some of my other videos. I think recently I've resubmitted about 5 books to CGC. Every single one of them went up the next grade. One was like a 8.0, came back at 8.5. I think there was another 9.0 that came back at 9.2, and there's some 9.6s that came back at 9.8s. So that just shows you the human factor, even with CGC, who's considered to be the best, that there's a human factor there as well. So I really think that there needs to be some artificial intelligence introduced into the game that's going to really tighten up the grading consistency, which is super important, because the more consistent they can be, then when it comes to pricing and what a collector wants to buy, or what they're going to get when they pay for their grade that they want, they know they're going to get what they're paying for, and they're not going to get, wow, this is the ugliest 9.8 I've ever seen in my life. No one wants that. They want, hey, if I'm getting a 9.8, they're expecting a certain quality of a book. So that's another thing that really needs to happen at some point. I don't know if any of these 3 grading companies are going to do it, or if it's going to be someone else that starts up new to do it. But that is 100% what I would do if I was going to be starting my own grading company. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna keep it short tonight. It's getting late. Um, I don't know. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't. I've got some Silver Age stuff. Retired on passive income, enjoy life. Not, not as much as I want. And I'll do stuff like this independent stuff. I'll score that when I can. I'll sell part of that, hold some of it, and then I'll reinvest into whether it be copper, bronze, or silver age keys. If you want to see a silver age book, check out my video with the ASM 5 that I unrestored. That was pretty awesome. Also, the big monster CGC submission went in today into the post office. I mean, basically, I took a full submission CGC box and then built my bricks of all the books and laid them all in there. And so that we got 175 books in that box, and I could probably get 200 would be completely full. So that'd be like 8 full submissions, and that thing weighed like 40 pounds, and it cost like $110 to mail to CGC. So it's registered, so it's going to take a while to get there, but that stuff will start coming back in a few months, and we'll unbox that. That'll be awesome. I don't know about having it all, Mike EV, but we'll get something. But anyway, so I've got some other stuff that'll be showing up. I've got a piece of original art that hopefully will be showing up soon. I know I talked about that in a couple other videos. It's coming from Singapore, so I don't know how long that's going to take. It's been probably a week and a half or something, so maybe if we get lucky, we'll have that for this Sunday. I've got some other independent stuff coming as well, depending on how late in the week that comes. I may save it for Sunday, or I may have to pull the trigger and just do like a random unboxing, because I don't want to keep people waiting for their stuff more than they need to, because I know people get real antsy on pre-orders and they want their books. But anyway, guys, is any other questions? No. Let's see. Yeah, especially, yeah, I see retired on passive income. If you're doing Silver Age stuff, CGC's it, man. I'm not going to touch anything else. I mean, that's it. If I look at a CBCS book, especially like a mid-grade, upper mid-grade, that CGC is it's gonna drop a full grade. So a 7.5 CBCS is probably a 6.5 CGC. And if you're talking like a key book, man, that could be thousands and thousands of dollars difference in value. And the person with their CBCS book doesn't want to sell it for, they're trying to get CGC prices. That's the problem. Everyone's grading to their different standards, but when it comes to the prices, everyone wants CGC prices. It's like you can't have that. And these other grading companies don't have enough product out there to where they can have their own values determined by their own grading. It doesn't exist. Everyone has to go back to CGC because they're the gold standard. So it's like you have to take that book, figure out what CGC is going to grade it, and then kind of base it, upon that. But I agree, Silver Age stuff, even bronze. I'm scared that there could be bronze, especially in a PGX book, older submission. There could be some slight color touch or a light trimming or cleaning or something like that PGX could miss, and that would ruin the value of your book. So, I mean, I have yet to buy a PGX book. I don't know if I will or not. I've heard from some people that their brand new stuff, is okay. I guess I'd be able to just look at the book through the case myself. You don't have to worry about color touch and trimming and stuff like that. But Silver Age, Golden Age, that's it. I mean, CGC is really the only one. I mean, CBCS isn't bad. I think they would catch the restoration, but who wants to have a book and deal with sending it to CGC and having it drop a full grade or possibly more? So yeah, I agree. The CGC is the only way to go for the old stuff. Yeah, I know it should be all the same, Mikey, but unless the other companies are going to have to change to match or imitate CGC. That's their only way to go, you know. And it's not like you even want to try and be more strict than them, because you know if someone did decide to do that and say, hey, I'm just going to be like the strictest grader out there, and they're just going to hammer everything, well, people are just going to not send you their books, because they're going to be like, well, why would we want to send it to Jay's grading service when he's going to call this book a 3.0 and CGC will call it a 4.5? You know, so the CGC has so much of the market share now. You can't, you know, you could try and be just this much stricter than them, just barely, barely, you know, but that would probably be the most I would shoot for. You'd want to try and imitate them as much as possible, or just be just, you know, the micro smidgen stricter than them. But you can't be super strict, because then people will just, they won't send you anything. They'll be like, well, you know, you can't ever get a 9.8 out of these guys, so they'll just send it to CGC. So that'd be like the kiss of death. But you know, that's what PGX needs to do. CBCS is close with their modern high grade stuff, but the older Silver Age stuff, you know, they just grade a little bit, you know, more loose than CGC. They're not as tight, so they need to kind of work on tightening that stuff up. And then CBCS has got like a 6 month turnaround time right now. It's absolutely insane. You know, I sent them a couple signature books to get verified signature, because you know I'm not going to send them to CGC and get a green label, and it took 7 months. So I was like, oh, never doing that again. It's like this one here, it's signed, it's not getting graded. I mean, that's it. Either I might flip this, because it's gone up pretty heavily since I got it, but it is pretty sweet. So you know, I'm not sure that I want to sell it, but I possibly would. But I know I'm definitely not going to send it to CGC and have them put it in a green label Sharpie written on cover. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So you know, definitely not going to do that. I really wish CGC would come up with some other solution to that, but you know, they really don't need to, because they don't care. You know, I mean, they maybe care, but not enough to like, hey, let's kind of come up with some new innovative stuff. They're the big, you know, they're the 800-pound gorilla. You know, they're not going to be you know, caring what other people are doing or whatnot. So they've got their thing going, and they're just trucking along. But yeah, 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 I know. I mean, we'll see, dude. I mean, it would be, you know, in order to start a grading company, you're talking millions of dollars. You know, you're gonna have to have, yeah. It's not something that's easily done. You know, that's for sure. You know, even PGX probably started out with quite a bit of money to get stuff going. But that would be awesome to do, but that's probably not really in the cards. But anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with me Monday night late. I'm going to be going through this stack of books and grading them and boxing them up so everyone can get their pre-orders out in a timely fashion. And we will catch you on the next one, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me.